Hello, everyone. Hello, MARUF participants. We have listened to a very important interview in 2004. In 2005, we do have a guest who have worked for the Association of History, and at KONDA Research Agency, we have got Bekir Ağırdır to deliver his keynote speech. I would like to leave the floor to him. The floor is yours, Bekir Bey. Hello, everyone. We wish a very successful and a beneficial meeting series. Of course, all around the world, and in Turkey, we have come across with pandemic like an event. For this reason, pandemics at the time made our problems worse than anything else. And the local government's problems, what are the missing parts, what are the lacking parts, and what is the governing style of ours? And in data usage, what are our major problems? What are our capabilities and capacities? It made us to rethink the situation. And for this reason, pandemic, yes, was an actually vitally important situation, and there were some people who were not able to access any water sources were obliged to wash their hands for 20 seconds. Right now, at the moment, all of these big concerns do have new formulas, new approaches, and new solutions. And in the beginning of my speech, I have mentioned that what is new and what things can be done about these issues needs to be shared. And there are two axes of my speech. One of them is becoming a metropolitan city and using of the actual data, open data by the local governments. But I would like to speak about becoming a metropolitan structure all around the world with the industrial communities and modelings. We have always divided the issue as the urban and rural, or the spatial areas where people are living as the habitats do have some certain formulations and schemes in our minds. So from the rural areas, when people have started to move to urban areas, when the countries have urbanized and involved in the industrial life, of course their policies have changed, our holiday and also eating habits are changing a lot. And day by day, our value world are changing. What we know as good and fine is changing. So we do have a theoretical scheme in our mind. And when we consider the actually separation of rural and urban areas, I name it as metropoles, and you can call as the regions or the cities, and some other teams are calling it as the corridor cities. There are some different in the actually regional city type of descriptions. However, becoming a metropolitan structure and what we describe with industrial terminology describing is something beyond that. When we look at in Turkish scale Kütahya or Kırşehir, Tokat and Artvin are cities. Istanbul and Bursa are also city. Ankara, Izmir and Bursa, education statistics and criminal statistics and their solidarity codings and moral values, cultural values is similar to each other. And when we speak about metropole-like structures in a wider geographical scope, and when we look at the life with multiple layers, like in Kütahya, when we make a description about Kütahya or about Artvin, we can have some cultural and moral coding and behavioral codes about the patterns, social patterns, not only on educational basis, identities, culture, and look at the distribution of cultural identities. It's possible to do a certain coding, but when we speak about metropole cities like Ankara and Istanbul, it is not possible to make clear-cut descriptions. So what we are speaking right now is only geographical and spatial extension, dissemination, but also the city pattern is changing. And not only physically changing, but not only as the constructions and buildings and the transportation network, But on the cultural and also moral levels, and the patterns and the daily practices are changing and evolving, and many clusters are living together. We are speaking about such kind of a structure and an administrative unit. And for example, when we speak about local governments, Kütahya and Simav's regional governance and Istanbul's governance are not the same, and the scope is not, the content is not the same. And when we speak about the metropole realities, above all, we need to have local services. But it's not only the local services, not only collecting the garbage, not distributing milk to the poor level of the full class of the society. We are speaking a totally different service provision that we are speaking about. In the past, the local governments actually economical issues were being left in the hands of the central government, and the central national governments were having the responsibility of security. And now we are discussing it on local basis. Neither economy nor the security can be provided by some strategic departments and some certain local security forces. It is essential to have a totally different perception and approach, organizational distribution of some certain common authorities and responsibilities. Another reality about metropole is as follows. It is not possible to clearly define that we do have such kind of a lifestyle in this metropoles, and actually richest one and the poorest one are living together. All of the dualistic and contradicting problems with a tripartite and quarter style are living together, and they are actually living very close with each other. And when you get Etiler, there is Alkent and actually Armutlu in Beykoz. There are Beykoz chalets and also the poor areas in Kağıthane. We do have Valley Istanbul, and we do have actually slum houses around it, surrounding it. So the practices of life and the values are totally different, and there are newly occurring type of problems. And above all, there is another concept of peace, and the reality of metropole in the national scale is being the main source of tensions and polarizations, and also there is a squeeze of some certain identities. For example, when we speak about squeezing within the identities and having polarization among the identities and lifestyle is not a big problem. Only the national government and the national policies and political actors, of course, should take it very seriously. It's a very complicated problem that we are speaking about. Istanbul Metro Mayor or the Istanbul actually council cannot be ignored in any discussion. It cannot be excluded any consensus, any social consensus. It is not possible to carry on something individually. All of this story should be basing on sociology, and we need to discuss and also reshape the structures and restructures. And what we know actually as an old-fashioned mindset with 40 for example, should be remodeled and should be operated with a new approach. And the basic problems, one of the basic problems is the administration. And for a long period of time in Turkey, I have always advocated a model, governing from local and starting from neighborhoods, from districts, and also any type of distribution, administrative distribution and also fragmentation. We are not having it regions, but all of these structures should be upside and down. And all of the starting from village and neighborhood concepts, the administrative distribution and responsibility allocation should be redefined and redesigned from the very beginning. This is what I have advocated, but we do have a more complicated situation today. When we speak about the democratic crisis and experiencing since that life is becoming so much complicated and multi-actors and multi-layered type of lives that we are facing with the national government or the national state, reconstructing the local means may not be a solution. This is what I think actually. And president or a prime minister, by giving a responsibility a single person and assigning the responsibility to a mayor should be something different, like Kanal Istanbul issue, for example. having the actually responsibility of doing it in the hand of mayor instead of having in the hand of actually president will not solve our problem. So we need to redefine the regions and areas and spaces, and we need to redefine their relationship with each other, and we need to have a more democratic, more inclusive manner, and the people who are living in that neighborhood, the citizens of that region should be involved in decision-taking processes. There should be a totally new mechanism we need to create. And here, Turkey's problem, one of the major problems, since is not making any definition for metropoles, and we don't have definitions for regions. When we are speaking about water problem of Turkey, Tekirdağ, Kocaeli, and Bolu needs to be included. It is not possible to solve the problem like that. By taking Stranca Mountains water and bringing it to Turkey, we cannot ignore Tekirdağ people. And when we are bringing Mengene water to Istanbul, we should also ask the Bolu and Kocaeli people without having their actually approval. It is not possible to carry on these things, and in such kind of an age, such kind of representative type of democracy may not valid. So participation should be restructured. So the local governance from starting from streets and regions should be redefined. All of the responsibility sharing and all of this actually situation should be restructured. When we are defining the metropoles and when we are defining the concept of actually real means of metropole from the local government, or actually as a response to the local governance problem, I would like to refer something. Let me link to the open data issue. In the previous sessions and in the keynote speeches, especially İlhan Tekil speech, he has most probably pointed out these facts. When we are governing metropoles and locally, the mechanism that we are actually using and the elected actually mayors should not carry on social politics like collecting garbage and distributing milk. They should act, and they are facing with a broader problem, and they need to cope with that. And of course, we should not leave it to the hand of the national state, like the construction of Canal Istanbul or the Marmara region's mucilage problem may not be left in the hand of the central government. In Marmara's mucilage issue, for example, you cannot leave it to the hands of Istanbul mayor. Like region type of new concepts and new openings are necessary. And when we are doing all of these, actually, there is another an administrative philosophy is necessary. When we speak about administrative philosophy, there are a lot of things to be told. But since that we are speaking about local governments and local government sessions, I would like to speak from the local administration science. Open data and smart city type of trendy concepts are being spoken out. I would like to speak on that. Above all, when we speak about smart cities and smart city issues, it is being misunderstood in Turkey. When we speak about smart cities, it is not only the matter of digitalization. Above all, the city itself, of course, and all of the figures related with the city should be open to public. If public would like to operate and make use of these data and transform them into a knowledge, actually, it's a different mechanism. But if this information and data are going to be used for having more participation and for bringing peace, actually, it's a different matter of discussion. Other than being a trendy concept, the basic problematic which it is pointing out is not the local governance, what we are speaking. The governors, I mean the local governors themselves, not only the elected ones, the local bureaucracy can be included. All of the administrative philosophy and mindsets should be changed. And above all, what I have observed, and among the audience, there should be local bureaucrats, I'm sure about that, but do not get angry with me. But we do have a very big capacity problem in local governance, in the national scale, having a partisan approach, or, of course, not having the ownership is being problematic. In some certain, actually, municipalities less, in some of them it is more. But when we speak about local bureaucracy, it should be effective. When you elect, for example, president from the day it was being elected, it is not a matter of realizing some certain projects which was being committed during the election and voting process. The money of the city and the needs of the citizens should be used in the most effective way. There is such kind of a concern, not only realizing those 3 projects and also leaving aside the other problems should be understood from this. There should be a holistic administrative approach, and the local bureaucracy should focus on efficiency, and also they may be, of course, act in accordance with the law of state officers, but measurement, scaling, performance management, of performing some certain criteria in the performance. So in the long term, creating a more efficient and sufficient local administration, the numbers and the also figurative performance measurement essential. It is not a matter of buying waste collection vehicles. It is not a matter of actually services and their measurements. Municipalities and the local governments should somehow measure and determine whether they are using it effectively or not. Direct or indirect capacities should be actually remodeled to be measured. Secondly, open data issue, or the use of and managing everything with data has got another layer. Of course, our citizens and the people living in that city should have a better life, an easier life. Yes, knowing when will the autobus will be coming and when will the metro will be arriving and how frequently they are going to collect your waste is a right to be known, actually. But at the same time, there is a mechanism which was being established with those citizens' taxes, and there are some transparency and accountable expectations. So they need to give account, they need to be transparent, and it is not a matter of declaring the bus hours. And when we speak about local government mechanism, when it is using the sources of the city, should know whether they are using the sources right or wrong, so that citizens actually should have better services which will ease on their life. It is not a matter of actually helping people who are looking for a renting a house. It is not a matter of actually earthquake resistance of the buildings in that region. And it is not retrofitting activities. It is not a matter of actually starting a big excavation for a big construction. Not only the bus times that people are looking for, actually, not only the kindergarten, knowing the name of the actually addresses of the teachers and the schools, and knowing the mosque of that region. It's not a matter of actually knowing the place of church. All of them are the rights of citizens, and it cannot create itself all alone. It is so much related with the life of the city, and it is related with the mechanisms which will make the people of that city easier.
Therefore, for this, every unit inside the local government, every service that they do every day should be digitalized and open to the public. That's a requirement. Therefore, when I go into the site of the municipality, I should also be able to see the problems that I could see when I'm looking for a rental house. I should also know the place of the school or the daycare center. This information doesn't provide facilitation, but also provides adaptation. In Turkey and the world, the story that we call migration will increase and continue. Let's send away the Syrians and let's not accept Afghans. These discussions in Turkey and in the international scale, these migrations will continue. Istanbul, even in fact Bursa, will not be the same Bursa or Istanbul that we know of, whether coming from Syria or coming from Georgia or Armenia to work, or they should come from Holland to live, or to find better places in industry, or to have a more successful doctor, surgeon, or engineer, the new people coming, adaptation to the city. The issue of adapting to the city cannot take place with only security forces and with files or data. Even if the oncoming one is a Syrian, we should allow them to adapt Istanbul, to get to know the culture and the social texture of Istanbul, and to adapt to this life more rapidly, the local governments. And this can be done thanks to data that have been turned into information. If the person who just came in and they won the university exam and they don't know where there are dormitories, they should be able to see where there is a safer way of living, to which neighborhoods she should give, so it could get housing by herself thanks to this information. Unless somebody prepares this information, she can learn them. Therefore, local governments are forced to turn into another logic of administration. The participatory democracy would allow this. In today's world, in my own neighborhood, whether or not a daycare center will be opened, or if that road is required to be close to traffic, I should be able to participate in my own neighborhood. I should be able to tell my idea and discuss it with other citizens. And the way to provide this in today's world is a data-based, a digital democracy based on the ICT techniques. Other mechanisms should be produced. Therefore, adaptation to life in the city, beyond facilitating the life in the city, the inclusion into the city life, we need digitalization and open policies, and the local governments have responsibilities to develop these. In the laws, whether or not these responsibilities are present do not matter too much, but in today's world, the issue is not just the tension between national governments and local governments, the peace, the total peace, and to have a more honored life, the responsibility belongs to all of us. Therefore, in this subject, local governments should develop their open data policies. As it's not going to be as easy as the concept of smart cities. You don't just define the details. A complex new modeling is necessary. And another dimension is economic of the digitalization or open data issues. The economic dimension has two requirements. One is the metropolitanization, going from national governments are responsible of the national economy. There are central banks and authorities. Therefore, local governments are not responsible from the economy of the city. But in today's world, now local governments must also create new strategies for the economy of the city and to be in charge of this process, from environmental pollution and climate change, all these complex problems that whole humanity is facing. Istanbul's economic strategy should not be left only to the central government in Ankara. It's too critical and complex to do this. Bursa's economic strategy, where Bursa is imagining to be in 2040, should not be left to national governments. It's an issue that should be localized. It cannot be met with the concept of the city. In these new metropolises, it should be a new economic vision for the city, and here they should be more active. But to be able to do this, there are two main issues. One of them is the issue of cooperation with the other actors of the city. For example, the chambers, with the Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Industry, architects, and other chambers, or NGOs. They should create a city understanding and the imaginary place in the world. And in Turkey, there should be a fundamental look. There's a need to create an understanding. All the work shows that if the actors of the city and the decision-making actors of the city are not included, only with the vision of a mayor or the vision of a party, it shouldn't be like that, but all the actors of the city should be included in a dream of the city, having a common horizon, common success. Therefore, Istanbul requires a common success, common outlook from the economic community to build it on a basis of the economy and to have a strategy for the economy of the city. Undefined in the city, a new opening, a new method is required, and there's a need for digitalization. Therefore, to facilitate the life of the city for its economic development is not just going to be produced by the city or the municipality. It's not enough to use their knowledge. In chambers of industry and city also the strategies produced by architects and engineers, have them arrive to a vision unity is necessary. For every city, for example, in Istanbul, they have different visions, but the city cannot be run with different visions. The local government has a responsibility, and for this, the different strategies, the digital data must be turned into projects and to allow their discussion, and the actors of the city and the residents of the city should participate to this process, and a new economic outlook is necessary. When you say economy, we're talking about the digital opportunity of economy. In metropolises and the whole world, we see that what we call new economy or digital economy, the weight of these enterprises that are not based on industry, using intelligence and information tools, these new models are sprouting in metropolises. Therefore, when taking industrial production outside metropolises, the intensification inside metropolises should be used in a double strategy. Therefore, the Istanbul local government, all the data they have, if they can open it and make them usable. Now, it's always said in Turkey, industry and university cooperation, etc. We also need local governments cooperating with universities and the digital world. Therefore, when producing new information from all this data, we need new economic enterprises. What I'm talking about is that all of them can be done within 30 days or 60 days or the term of one mayor. If we go back to the beginning, the pandemic issue showed that in the world and in Turkey, injustice and poverty is becoming permanent. Therefore, not how many daycare centers we build or how many families we provide milk for, but we should have the right to live honorably to every citizen and to provide the living conditions. We have such a responsibility, and this cannot be left to national governments, and they cannot be squeezed into milk distribution programs. Therefore, from the pandemic and going through all our deficiencies. We need new approaches, new models, and we need to develop them, improve them by discussing them. Naturally, there may be a model that we can transfer, but we can do them by discussing with such meetings. But as much as discussing them, they should be turned into action. Volunteering, politicians and NGO members are required. Therefore, the responsibility belongs to all of us, not to mayors or members of the assembly or politicians. This, as every citizen, it's a responsibility of all of us and to create solutions. I wish you the best.